Thank you, Jeff. Happy spring, everybody. I mean, come on. Woo. All right, now that I got you all geared up, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes and listen to these words from Ernest Holmes. The Spirit within me is God. The living Spirit Almighty is within me now. Spirit is the sustaining principle of my life. I open my mind to its influx. I open my consciousness to its inflowing, and I open my heart to its love. Amen, huh? That is what we're all about this month. We're all about diving in to that wonderful mystic within and embracing it. And I'm going to go as far as to say putting it to work. Because within every single one of us, there is a deep longing to connect, right? To be happier, more joyful, more content, I'm going to say. And that comes through being conscious of the power that we already have. It's actually, for me, a longing to be home. I can't tell you how many times in a New Thought Center such as this, you hear people say, I feel like I'm home. I knew I was home when I first attended the Huntington Beach Church of Religious Science. And I knew I was home because I had to leave, the music started and I started to cry, right? And I left before the closing song so I could go to the beach and cry some more. That went on for quite some time, actually, until someone actually left with me and just said to me, I want to give you a hug. And that was it. She gave me a hug, and then I left and I cried some more. But I knew I was home. And I knew I had a lot of inner work that I was ready to do. And I believe that's true for all of us that are here. I believe we're all willing and ready to do that work. And we have a guest, which is always so fun. Hey. You know, we want a greater connection. And to the degree that we are willing to do our inner work, that is the degree of contentment we start to get in our world. It's really about being willing and then making a decision. Making that decision that I'm going to give myself the gift of time for me. And I don't say that lightly because the gift of time is a big one for most of us, right? I mean, the world of form can grab us. And before we know it, it is consuming us. Before we know it, the day is done, and it's like, what did I accomplish? That was on my list, right? To illustrate this, Joan Bursenko, who I know I just butchered her name, but in her book, she tells this great story of a yogi. It's a Hindu story. And his guru left him on the side of the road under a tree wearing a loincloth and with a beggar's cup. And he was to spend his day in contemplation until the guru came back. So every day he would wake up and do some contemplation. He would go into town and he would beg for food, and he'd come back and sit under his tree. And all was going well until one night he decided to wash his loincloth and hang it on a tree. The next morning, a rat had eaten his loincloth. So, embarrassed as he was, he had to now go into town and beg for a loincloth as well as food. Well, the second time this happened to him, he's like, this is too embarrassing. I need to do something. So, he found a little kitten, and he took the little kitten home. So now, the kitten's with him under the tree. They're both doing contemplation, but the kitten needs milk. So now he's got to go into town and not only beg for food, but he's also got to beg for milk. So he finds a stray cow, and everything is now going wonderfully. It really, truly is. But then the hot summer sun showed up, and all of the grass disappeared. So now he had to go to town to beg for food and milk and fodder for the cow. Well, this just wasn't going to work. So he decided to plant some food so he would be prepared for the next summer. So his crops did really well. His crops went so well that it was taking away his time from contemplation. So he hired a crew to work the field. But now that he had a whole crew, he needed to manage the crew. So he decided to take a wife so his wife could oversee the field. Well, the wife wasn't going to live under a tree, so he had to build her a house. And then she got pregnant, so he needed to add on to the house. Before you knew it, the yogi had grown very wealthy, very fat, but still found a little time every day to sit under the tree and contemplate. One day a figure comes up that he recognizes, and it's his guru. And his guru says, student, what is this? I left you 5 years ago with a begging bowl and a loincloth to contemplate, to become. And he says, Reverend Teacher, I know this is hard to believe, but I was just trying to keep my loincloth. But isn't that the way it goes, right? Can you see that in your life, how you start with something little, and then it just sort of, man, before you know it, it's like, wow, I took on a lot. Our to-do list keeps expanding. But what I can tell you for a person, I can tell you this personally from a fact, that when we spend time in spiritual practice, when we spend time meditating, contemplating, when we spend time throughout the day just taking that wonderful breath and remembering who we are, when we do that, time opens. Things go easier. They go a little faster. There's a few less things that have to be done. I can't explain it, but I can tell you, it's a fact. It truly is. And if we want true peace, true prosperity, that true loving inner joy to come out and play, we need to facilitate it. We need to court it. We need, I believe, to start activating the mystic essence that's in each one of us. Because we're not here to play small. We aren't. If we wanted to play small, we'd be out in the sun right now. We are here to connect, to go deeper, to go higher, to really, truly live life from that place of light and love. That mystic essence. It is that spark. It is that spark within that perks up our ears when we hear something positive and enlightening and thought-provoking. It is that innermost passion and aspirations that come out when we watch a given documentary or read a given book. And it is that whisper. It's that whisper of the universe that kind of echoes. It's that voice that we can't turn off. It's not that ego monkey crazy little self up here, but it is that longing and that yearning in our heart that just like won't stop until we do what is ours to do, which is to feed the soul and allow that essence to come out and play. Allow our gift to show up for the world. Ernest Holmes, our founder in The Science of Mind, writes, "A mystic is not a mysterious person, but is one who has a deep inner sense of life and one's unity with the whole. A mystic is one who intuitively perceives truth and, without mental process, arrives at a spiritual realization." The mystic senses the atmosphere of God and allows it to reveal itself. It is personal to all who believe in its presence. Neville, in his book, Faith is Your Fortune, writes, consciously claim yourself to be that which you seek, appropriate the consciousness that which you see, and you too will know the status of a true mystic. Rabbi David Copper wrote a book, God is a Verb. Isn't that a great title, God is a Verb? And it's so true, and we know that in this teaching. But he spent time preparing for this book by interviewing some of the greatest teachers and spiritual leaders, Buddhist monks, Native Americans. He covered as many as he could cover. And they all came to one realization that they shared with him, and that to be spiritual is very simple. It's not complicated. Holmes writes somewhere in the textbook, he writes something to the effect of, things are simple, but as humans, we want to make a riddle out of all of it. Right? It's just simple. It is so profound, but yet easy. It is grand, but yet totally accessible. And when we unlock the gates of the mystic within, when we step into being that powerful, there is nothing to stop us, especially when we have support of each other. It's all about letting that inside joy come out and play however it wants to. Diane Harmony wrote a book, The 5 Gifts of Abundance, and she looks at this idea of surrender in a very unique way. And in her book, she takes the synonyms for surrender, and she sort of puts some spiritual definition into it. So if surrender isn't your word, because it's a big word, right? And it's got some bad mojo attached to it in terms of society, right? But come on, haven't we all surrendered at one point in time? I mean, gotten on our knees and just said, okay, I can't control it anymore, right? I think if we haven't been there, get ready, because it's just part of life, right? But anyway, in her book, she says, instead of surrender, yield. Yield to the flow of life rather than oppose it. Instead of surrender, relinquish. To let go of the resistance of accepting what is and to choose our path no matter how differently it appears. Resign. Instead of surrender, resign. Resign to our little selves, to our holy selves for guidance that it offers. Resign ourselves to the goodness of God. And then instead of surrender, she suggests we submit. Submit our will to the divine will of the God within. Submit to that inner ear for your listening. And allow that small, still voice to have volume. It's about letting go of control. And letting it flow. And I can tell you again, once one spends time in a spiritual practice, it just becomes easier to let go of control. I don't know why. But if you're controlling something too hard at any point in the day, it's time to walk away. Read something positive. Say an affirmation. Do your spiritual work and then come back. I'm not talking hours. I'm talking minutes. Holmes writes in the textbook, the highest mental practice is to listen to this inner voice and declare its presence. The greater a person's consciousness of this indwelling I am, the more one will live life. unlimited, knowing that it dwelleth in me, it does the work, and it is my voice. So I don't know why it's referred to as that small, still voice. But there was a time when I really wanted to hear it. And I would walk the dogs, and I would, thank God nobody is ever up at this hour. I'd walk my dogs, and I would say my treatments out loud. And there were times it got really loud because I wanted that small voice to be really loud and really powerful and just make it so I couldn't ignore it any longer. And treatment works. And then I found myself treating, okay, I need this voice to calm down a little bit, It's like, all right, I'm doing it as fast as I can do it, just calm it down. Because that still voice is only still and small because we let it be that. We let it be that. It can speak volumes when we're willing. And we decide, not choose, we decide to listen. So, are you ready to get your mystic on this month? Seriously. All right. So, there's a couple of things. It's about embracing that stillness throughout the day. That's what it's about. It's about just taking time throughout the day and allowing that voice to be blessed. Like, I thank that inner voice. I thank that inner mystic, and I am so on to play. Right? And then there's this writing of homes that I started us off with. Yeah. And I invite all of us to take it home and include it not only in our spiritual practice. And if you don't have a spiritual practice, you're going to get one. Because this is something, and if this doesn't sing to you, find a reading that does sing to you. And allow yourself just to read something and know this is who I am. This is who I am. And then let us all allow those flames of curiosity, let's put those flames of curiosity on fire. Let's just be curious about life, about other people, about what we're thinking, about what we're reading, about what we're watching on TV. Let's start being curious and start asking ourselves some questions. Be in that awe, childlike innocence, from a place of curiosity. Because when we do that, when we allow that part of us to come out and play, then we are letting go of control and we are providing space for spirit. All of this leads to one thing, and that's letting go and surrendering to that part of us, that inner joy that is part of us. That intrinsic aspect that we all have. But we are not only smart enough and brave enough, but we are willing enough to let it out. Harold Persifer wrote, "All the greatest mystics have agreed that the soul is on the pathway of experience, that is, of self-discovery, that it's on its way back to its mother's house, and every soul will ultimately reach its heavenly home." We're home. Let us just know that we are already home. And it feels so good and so safe, doesn't it? From that place of being home. Allow that inner joy, allow that mystic to suit up and to show up, because I will tell you, it is ready. And there's a part of all of us that's ready. And now, spring has sprung and now is the time. So, welcome home.